Did you get the presentation put on the screen? All right. Well, do you want to go ahead and introduce our guest speaker today?
I do, but I have a quick question. So we're supposed to vote this morning. Do you want to do it before or after?
We can go ahead and do it now, please.
Okay. If everybody will please turn on your chat so that you can see what I put in the chat box. The current slate of officers is listed. That does not mean that it has to remain the current slate of officers. If someone else has an alternative nominee, if you would put that in the chat box, please. Give you 10 seconds to do that. If you've got someone, you may nominate yourself. We don't mind that at all.
Hey, Michelle, I'm not seeing the nominees in the chat.
All righty, let me put it there. How's that?
Okay, gotcha. I see it now. Thank you.
Monique Ely, wonderful. Has Monique agreed to serve, Sharon?
Absolutely.
Very nice. Okay. Does that imply that you would prefer to resign your post and allow Monique to take your place on the ballot?
That is correct.
Okay. So then the new lineup is and she's with the art museum, right?
No, she's with the Children's Museum.
Ah,
that's my boss. You
got you.
Monique, yeah.
I just, in my brain, she was at the art museum. Okay, so that's the revised lineup. So just to make it formal, Stacy Crane, President, Programs, VP for Programs, Monique at the Children's Museum, VP for Marketing, Michelle Baker, VP for Membership, Elizabeth Coleman, and Treasurer, Fran Baker. All right, I think if everybody will vote by saying yay or nay in the chat box.
Michelle, excuse me. We left off the secretary.
I apologize, Jamie. Oh my goodness.
I was wondering if this was a subtle way of
no
out of it.
This is Michelle's stupidity day is what it is. I apologize, Jamie. No, that was nothing but sheer ignorance.
No, that's totally fine. And if there's someone who would like to take that, that's totally cool with me. I inherited this role from Tony. So
well, if you would like to resign that position and find a replacement, you need to do it in the next 30 seconds.
Yeah, we don't want you
No,
there.
she's going to keep that position.
We don't want you to leave.
I mean, it hasn't even been a full year in this role.
We want you to stick.
All right, so let me because Sylvia McNeil just joined us. So let me re-put the because I think what happened is you joined the chat after I put that there, which is why you couldn't see it. So Sylvia, good morning. We're just about to vote for officers. The current slate is in the chat box. Can you see that?
I can. I'll be with y'all in just a minute. I'm here.
No,
Thank you.
no problem. So is everyone happy with the slate as presented? If you would like to vote yes, please put yes in the chat box. If you would like to vote nay, vote no. It looks like we've got our slate of 2023 officers.
Woohoo!
Congratulations. All right.
Congratulations, everyone.
Congratulations, everybody. All right. So Tamika, are you ready to get started? Okay. By the way, you're muted, so I cannot hear you.
Yes, if you could pull up what I sent you, that would be great.
All right. All right. Can everyone see the title slide of Tamika's presentation?
Yes.
Okay. And Tamika, you're going to need me to advance the slides for you, right?
Yes, if you don't mind, I appreciate it, Michelle. We can just go ahead and go to the next slide. But I think everybody knows me, but if not, my name is Tamika. Sorry, Michelle, what was that?
So can everybody still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Which does people can still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. You know what? I'm sorry. Give me, I'm going to close a couple of windows because I think I'm doing too much here in the background. Give me just a minute.
Okay. Well, while Michelle's doing that, just to let everyone know, I'm Tamika Eatmon. I'm with AmeriCorps and CCC out of the Southern region. Our offices are in Vicksburg. And I have been with AmeriCorps and CCC for 10 years now. So exciting for me that I get to work with young adults who are ages 18 to 26. And part of my role is that I'm sending out AmeriCorps members out to different projects. I help to develop and do outreach for 4 different states out of our 20-state region, and that includes Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and Louisiana. And so part of that, and what Stacy asked me to share, are some of the things that we share with our sponsors in welcoming and supporting and creating an inclusive environment for our members as they go to serve with different nonprofits, with different agencies, in order to prepare them for working with a diverse group of young people. And so I'm excited to kind of be able to share some of the things that we talk about. So you'll see some of the slides we share with them during that time, and just kind of do a quick review of ways that you can think about creating an inclusive environment and thinking about that for your volunteers. Michelle, I don't know, I think we lost the slides.
Yes, my Zoom keeps crashing. It's crashed 6 times and it keeps rejoining.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to try to do it again. Just give me
Okay.
10 more seconds. I apologize, y'all. It's just
Michelle,
B2D. Yes.
if you make her the hostess, it may resolve the issue.
Okay. Will then she be able to share her own screen?
I think so, but
I might be able to share it now.
you
Or
may
Stacey,
update
do you
your
have
app.
a thoughts too? I know I sent it to both of you. I don't know.
Let me see. Okay. So I'm not the host anymore. So if you want to have it, you need to share it, or I can take the host back and try it again. Your preference.
Let's see. See if I can. Okay. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
We're good.
Yes, Tamika. We can see,
Okay.
it looks like maybe the last screen, but yes.
Okay, well, let's not go there. I'm just gonna do this. I'm sorry, y'all, for the technical difficulties. We'll just go backwards. That way, okay, here we go. Is that good?
Yes.
All right. Okay, great. So let's, first I wanted to kind of just open it up with a couple of questions for you all. And so one would be, why is it important to consider diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, DEIA, when recruiting and working with volunteers? So why do we think about this, and why is this important to consider this when working with our volunteers?
Opinion, it's important to have people who don't look like you and think like you to be at the table to help make decisions, because then together we're all smarter. We've all got different points of view. We all come from different places and different faiths and different cultures. And so if we have multiple streams of knowledge coming in, I think that it makes the end product richer and more useful ultimately. Plus, you get to meet cool people if you don't just hang out with people who look like you.
You know, at my old workplace, I had this rule about you could not talk politics, religion, current events, but I knew from their screening a lot about them. And it was very joyful to me to watch people who were from the opposite ends of the spectrum sit down and enjoying each other and not knowing this other and just working towards a goal. And everything Michelle said, ditto, because it made for a richer product.
Mm-hmm. So
I think, excuse me, I think it's important, and I think both of them have already just said this, but we set the example for our volunteers. You know, we're at the top of the line and we lead the parade or lead the army. We've got to do that. It's not, well, I think I might, no, we have to across the board, because that sets the temperament and the future of what they're going to do with our program.
yeah. So, you know, and we'll talk about that, like you are setting the kind of that bar for everyone else. And in addition to enriching your program and enriching the end product, but then also just thinking about why these things, you know, why inclusion is so important with making your volunteers feel a part of what's going on, feel included in, you know, help to boost their morale, even feel like they're being understood and heard. So I think those are, you know, part of the reasons why it is important to think about these things and make sure that it's included in part of what you're out, you know, your plan for your recruitment and how you support your volunteers. So what does diversity inclusion look like in your workplace or in your volunteer program? And what does it mean to you personally?
Well, from the museum standpoint, our volunteers are definitely diverse. I get a lot of volunteers, not only from the Jackson metropolitan area, but a lot of the county schools as well. And we purposely intentionally want to be inclusive to all individuals. That means those with slight disabilities as well that can come in and possibly definitely do some of the tasks that's actually required. And I've had several volunteers with limited limitations that really want to volunteer. So they may not be able to manage a gallery area, but there could be some opportunities within our back office for clerical work where they can either sit and actually perform a particular task. So I think it's extremely important. Now, my demographics have changed somewhat when it comes to male versus female. I am getting more females now, and in the past it was more younger guy students, but we still have a pretty good mixture from that standpoint. And just going back to, if we don't set the example, because leadership starts at the top and it always trickles down. So if you don't really see that at the highest level of any organization, you may begin to wonder, is this the place for me?
So that's so
Oh,
true.
Tamika,
Sharon.
I would like to add something here because so I recently joined a professional writing association called the Food, Wine and Travel Writers Association. And I decided that I was going to go to their annual conference, which was in Florida. So I drove my little happy behind to Florida and stayed with my uncle for a couple of days. And I walked into the room on the very first day, and 99.5% of the people in that room were old white people, which was very interesting. And I thought, okay, I can go with, it was basically my grandmother 195 times. Now, I love my grandmother, but I was like, where are the men? Where are the people under 50? Where are the people with brown skin, any shade? I don't even care, just any shade. There was a handful, 5 or 6 men in the room. And I discovered after being there for 3 days, they were all Mr. somebody who was in the room with them. So it was like, Mrs. Smith decided to be a travel writer and go to the conference, and she brought Mr. Smith as her +1. So, diversity is important, even in a situation like that where you wouldn't even think about it. But I mean, how can there be great writing when everybody looks the same? Mix that up. You got to mix it up.
Because everybody's story is different. And I would think that people want to see their story, like similar similarities reflected in that, So, I think you all know these terms, and I just want to make sure that we cover them, but just making sure that DEIA, that we kind of just do definition check-in. Of course, diversity, when we think about it, includes a lot of different things. And the main thing for me is backgrounds. So, a lot of times initially, sometimes when we think about diversity, it's around race. No, it can be around lots of different things. It can be around sexual orientation. It can be around just regional differences, especially for when I'm thinking about our AmeriCorps members that come across the United States, just different perspectives when we think about diversity. It's just, to think about that there's a lot of different aspects and a way that individuals can be a diverse mix of group of people. When we think about equity, and I know sometimes initially kind of spending that time to figure out what the difference between equity and the difference between equality. And I will say that the definitions that I'm getting these from, especially being a federal agency, I've referred to the executive order that was given out in 2021 that provided definitions. So those are the definitions that you're seeing on my screen. But then also the one that I like as well is this idea of the one that's listed below. So thinking about allocating resources to ensure everyone has access to the same resources and opportunities. So there has to be the allocation. And then also equity, to have equity, you have to recognize that there are barriers there, that there's challenges that have to be addressed in order to get to the point of equality. So equity is the approach, meeting those, making sure things are met to get to the outcome of equality. And so thinking about that, and where are areas where there are barriers, where are areas that there are challenges that we have to think about in order to ensure that we have equality for everyone. So inclusion, that idea of a sense of belonging, a sense of valuing is so important. And I think what we'll be looking at is making sure how can we think about inclusion for the folks that that are our volunteers. How can we make sure that they feel appreciated? A lot of times that's a big thing with volunteer managers, making sure that they feel appreciation. And a lot of that sometimes comes in with recognizing that there's a diverse group and there's different needs that need to be addressed with that. And so accessibility. So, when we think about accessibility having services for all people, it was nice to hear, Sharon, how you work with the different individuals, anyone that comes in and thinks about different types of ways that they can serve. And that everyone there's a position, there's an opportunity for everyone. And that's what we want, right? But then also thinking about kind of that reduction of physical and attitudinal barriers. Because I think sometimes, and that's one thing that, we can look at the physical barriers where maybe there's not a ramp. We could easily see that. But what are some of the attitudes that we have with folks with different mental disabilities, or whether it be and what are the things that we originally think that maybe that we have biases, or maybe we have preconceived notions without asking them. So making sure that we're also thinking about what are those barriers as well. So this is one of the slides, and this will probably look familiar, I know, to Stacy, something that we've shared with our sponsors, and we go in and talking about how do you create an inclusive environment for volunteers. And one of those is really truly thinking about language. I didn't actually start off with, and it probably should be one of the first things that we start off with when I did my introduction, and sharing my pronoun. And so my pronoun is she, her, but it's very important and something for our members that we feel like is very important. And sometimes that just to kind of get off to the right start, because we can sometimes make assumptions about what pronouns people go by, and it can really get us into trouble sometimes. Most recently, I just had one of the members come back from serving and they were misgendered. And so maybe they were referred to as a she, her when they go by he, him, or, maybe they go by they or them. So we need to make sure that we're aware of our volunteers, especially for our members who are non-binary, who are trans or non-gender conforming. These pronouns are very important. And so it's important, as just kind of the initial introduction, just like we say, hi, my name is Tamika Eatmon. A lot of times our members will, when they're doing their presentations, they'll start off, hi, my name is, and then they'll go into, they may say where I'm from, and then they'll say what their pronouns are so that you know how to address them, how they want to be addressed. So also some other ways that we can think about language is making sure that we put people first, which is probably something familiar, especially in talking with individuals living with disabilities. Instead of saying what a disabled person, saying a person living with a hearing impairment. So putting the individual, and I think it's also just a frame of mind, like thinking about the person instead of initially, like let me think about this as a person, as an individual, over whatever disability they're living with. So thinking about it in that way. Also, making sure that we're using universal language for the folks that come in, especially when they're, coming in from other parts of the country or maybe a little bit different region. How can we, avoid jargon? How can we avoid acronyms or other things that maybe doesn't necessarily come over well. Like saying something, some examples we've used during our train is making sure we don't say things like crack or saying like, let's see, I'm starving. And instead of starving, what's an example of something that we could say instead of saying I'm starving? What, Sharon? I'm sorry, I see you talking, but I don't see.
I said, let's eat, which I need to say less of.
But I mean, it's something that I automatically say, right? Like I usually when I'm hungry, I'll say, oh, I'm starving. Or I'll say, oh, I'm like, if I'm low on money, I'll be like, I'm broke. You know, it's just common things that we say. But when you think about someone's different experiences, if you have someone who's lived with homelessness, if you had someone who didn't necessarily know where their next meal was coming from, then they truly understand what starving means. And we appreciate that experience, right? By using language like that. And then also it can be also like, I would say even triggering. Some of these things and some of these examples can be triggering because we're using them just as, you know, vernacular. So let's go on. Recognizing impact of mental health language. You know, sometimes we kind of, once again, with a mental diagnosis, sometimes we think about like saying something like bipolar or OCD. You know, another common one is OCD. Like I'm OCD. And instead of saying OCD, what is something that we could say? Like a person's OCD.
They're highly attentive to detail.
Exactly. Exactly. Like they're, you know, it's a very detailed individual. And just thinking about for those individuals who have these mental diagnoses, like to think about them and to be aware that, okay, there's other terminology that we can use that maybe is not trivializing their experience. Going into using gender neutral language. Now this one is, you know, and I'll talk a little bit more, but like thinking about stuff like police officers or firemen, but then also even just something as, which I think you guys is kind of, I've had some folks say you guys, that they don't like it a few years ago, but I think it is kind of coming back as kind of a gender neutral. I guess it depends on the group. It's just something to be aware of. But the good thing about being a Southerner is that we can say y'all, and that includes that includes everybody. Also being thoughtful of the imagery we use. One that one of my colleagues shares, and I was just like, it was kind of a learning, you know, I've heard, you know, that person is a basket case. But it comes from World War I soldiers who had lost all 4 limbs being carried in a basket. And so it has, yeah, like something I never even realized has something, you know, some very maybe traumatic imagery for folks that maybe know about that experience. And so also when we say things like ghetto, I mean, it's kind of like, oh, they live in the ghetto, they live in the projects, whatever it may be. When we can simply just say the neighborhood that they live in, instead of it's become, you know, like when we think about ghetto, what are the things that we think about and what are we saying about that community? How can we better vocalize that we have appreciation for the community where someone's coming from, and thinking about that. And then asking if you aren't sure. So like we said with the pronouns, going back to that, like just ask, just feel free to ask folks, you know, what their pronouns are, how do they want to be identified, how do they, what accommodations are needed for them. These are the different things that you want to think about, you know, how things that you can kind of at the forefront, just ask and find out the information and basically avoid making assumptions about certain norms, like, right? And it's okay that we've grown up with certain things, but we have to kind of think about how can we challenge that? How can we rethink, especially when we're working with a diverse group of people, and be sensitive to the language that we use, and know that that is a learning process and that we're in the process of learning as we grow in our sensitivity to that. So going to the next slide, you know, a lot of times when I talk about this with our sponsors and welcoming our members, I also talk about being from the South and making sure, like, when you invite someone into your house and having Southern hospitality, that you want to make sure that they feel welcomed, right? Like, there's certain things that you want to think about. Do they feel safe? Do they feel comfortable? How can I create that environment when you walk into my space, into my home, where I know that you feel like you belong? Like, you know, that this is a great place for you. And I want to make sure that I bring the best, put my best foot forward with that, right? So some of the things that we can say that sometimes challenge or interrupt creating that inclusive environment are some of the language that we use, right? Some of the things that we ask, or some of the things that we say. And one of those is, where are you from? So especially with our members who come from all across the United States, or, you know, and I realize, like, being from the South, like, and being from, it's a common question, where are you from? Because we use it to kind of say, so how do we know you? Like, how does your family connect it to my family? Or, you know, like, to do that. And that is perfectly, but it becomes problematic when we say, where are you from? And we're trying to find out, like, what their ethnicity, or where maybe their ancestors come from. And they maybe say, like, okay, may identify as someone who's Asian American, may have said, oh, I'm from Tennessee, right? And that's the answer. I mean, that's where they're from for them. That's where I'm from. But you keep asking them, where are you from? Where are you from? And it becomes kind of something of offensive. And so we encourage folks to just say, you know, where are you from, or what state are you from? And just allow to that, and just to be aware of, okay, not to, you know, not to think about, like, why am I trying to figure out where, you know, what country or whatever that person may have, their ancestors their grandparents may come from, or whoever. Then also a biggie with our members is, can I get a few men to help over here? Because we all, you know, the idea too, like, I kind of grew up with the, you know, that men lift the heavy things, right? Like, that's a common, like, you know, but for our members, for our young folks, and when you think about working with young adults who want to sign up and do a lot of hard volunteer work, I mean, and also I think it's knowing your group of audience, but just asking who wants to do what. And then that gets rid of any assumptions that you might make, or anything that we kind of think that, you know, men do certain jobs and women do other jobs. This just opens it up for who wants to do what job. So making sure that you're thinking about that, and that just asking those questions kind of open-ended, who wants to do what, and then if, you know, like, depending on that group, they'll kind of decide on who wants to do that. And then, hey, this one, hey, Maria, can you tell me what they're saying? Sometimes we've had, it's very frustrating for our members, like, especially, you know, someone who may identify with may have Hispanic heritage, or maybe Latinx, and someone may say, can you translate? Well, maybe they don't speak Spanish. Maybe they're being, you know, like, why am I always the one that's been you know, like, being the one asked to translate? I mean, it can be very frustrating. So once again, just having that simple question of who can do this, you know, or who's interested in doing this. And you never know, maybe you have someone in the audience that was a Spanish major and can really, you know, or whatever language it may be, and just not make the assumption that someone, the way they look, or the way they appear, automatically should be in this group, or should be able to do this or that thing. So some of the things that I've just talked about and something that we're probably familiar with is microaggressions. We probably all have experienced some form of microaggression. And I want to read the kind of the definition just to make sure that I've given you that. But microaggression is a term used for a brief and commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, or environmental indignities, whether intentional, unintentional, that communicate derogatory or negative viewpoints, slights, biases, or insults towards any group, particularly culturally marginalized groups. So, you know, if you think of, to give an example, you know, if you have someone who uses a wheelchair and or has a disability, and then somebody, you notice that they're talking to that individual in a more kind of simplified or baby voice in comparison to how they talk to someone else, or maybe they overlook that person when they ask questions of the group, like they ask everyone else except for that person. You know, those are those types of things of microaggressions. And sometimes it's, you know, for Black women, sometimes it's been, can I touch your hair? Or if you've been a woman and someone's ever, or if you've been a woman and someone's ever said, you know, oh, you really did a great job for a woman, you know, or something, you know, or something like that. Like there's that little bit of that comes in, and it just doesn't feel exactly right. And the intention sometimes is not necessarily a horrible intention. They may be trying to give a compliment, but it feeds into some bias that maybe they're just not aware that they have, or some assumption that maybe they had, and it can be very kind of detrimental to the people around them. So if you're an individual, Michelle, do you want to share something?
I've seen this word, but never had a definition like this. So, for example, your comment about the hair. I've had people do that to me. I've had people come up and say, can I touch your hair? So it isn't just Black women. And I'm like, no, I don't know you.
Yeah.
You know, this is not a racial thing. I don't know you. And it's the same as, okay, so here's my question. Is it the same as my friend, when she was pregnant, total strangers would walk up to her and like touch her stomach. They'd just walk up and all of a sudden there'd be somebody with their hands on her stomach. Say, oh, you're pregnant. She said, yeah, and you're touching me. Is that microaggression or is that something else?
So I think there's a little bit, there's these boundaries. Like I think they're very similar in that there are boundaries that people have, right? And people are kind of going outside of those boundaries. But the problem is that it happens based on probably something, when you think about something that causes that individual to be in a marginalized group. So it's something, whereas someone, like the idea that, you know, a lot of our stereotypes and things like that, like making assumptions, and that, oh, an Asian American is here, oh, they're going to be able to do this math problem or whatever it may be. It's kind of based on things like that. I think both of them are examples of kind of boundaries that people have, but there's something a little bit more rooted into why is there curiosity about certain things, whether it be Black or whether it be another race or whether it be someone with disabilities or whatever it is that kind of the differences around there. And anybody else wants to kind of expand on that or want to kind of share on, you know, what they think, feel free to do so. Anything? But I will say that, you know, with microaggressions, you know, you just kind of want to, it's something that happens and you you have to, if you catch yourself, or if you know, those, I mean, with any of these, if you catch yourself, just kind of, you know, you know, is something maybe that just apologize and keep going and recognize that you've said something that's maybe a little bit offensive to that individual. You know, I think the microaggressions can be kind of on a lot of different things, but it's kind of more so in the things that make us a little bit different. And why is it people focusing in on those things that are differences? So I'll go on to the next one. So want to talk about, you know, kind of these tips for volunteer managers. And you all, of course, have already said this, but leading by example and creating that an environment for dignity and respect in the workplace. And so thinking about how can you create a place of respect, but then also remembering that we all have, depending on what our cultural background's on, how I define respect may be a little bit different from how you define respect. So making sure that we're checking in to see that we have this respectful workplace, but that a lot of different perspectives are involved in how we define that term respect. Then also thinking about welcoming and celebrating diversity in your team, which all of you have said that you want to have that it's important to have that. Also challenging assumptions that sometimes we make about different people, and just valuing their contributions, which you all have mentioned already, and that the kind of the product of what we can have when we all kind of have that different contributions, different perspectives is much richer and you know, in product. And then just, I mean, being okay with kind of checking our own biases. We all have them. But then just, you know, making sure that we're asking ourselves, what do I assume to be true or false about an individual? Maybe why do I assume that? So just asking yourself that. Then also asking yourself, what attitude will help me learn, build, and achieve with this individual or group? And with our members, I think this was so valuable because there's so much that you can learn from other people, right? And our members are coming, young adults coming in, working with probably different generational mid-career individuals or older individuals than the groups. And so there's an opportunity to learn from each other, whether it's with our young adults or with whoever. But if you have that kind of attitude of, okay, how can I build and learn more, instead of, you know, like being kind of like offended by it, but taking it as a learning opportunity, I think is a good way to think about that. And then also, and this is one that I find is important, ensure staff are trained on the benefits of DEIA and are respectful towards all colleagues, volunteers, and the affected community they work with. And I just feel like sometimes you have other staff, like the main staff person that I'll work with may be really in tune to all of this, but all the staff's not always in tune with this, or all of the volunteers that come in are not in tune with being sensitive to other folks. And so it's so important that it's not just that one person on the staff or the two people that kind of get it. Everyone kind of needs to get this information. And ensure all services are accessible to help create a safe and inclusive space. So making sure that you're thinking about accessibility, how can we make sure that those barriers are not there? And then making sure that you have the reasonable adjustments needed and are proactive and act, you know, once again, asking, what do we need to do to make the accommodations that are needed so that you can serve? And then just continuously strive for best practices and embrace change. Because I feel like the great thing about when I started 10 years ago, I was working with millennials. Now I work with Generation Z, Generation Z, and they're a little different. But then also like there's new terminology that's always changing. Things are changing. And the great thing about what I get to experience is kind of they're coming in and telling me, Tamika, no, we do this, you should do this. These are the changes that need to be made. And so it's just kind of still always embracing that and realizing that, okay, things are going to change every few years, but that's okay. I can take this as a learning opportunity and continue to grow, because I want to make sure that I have the inclusive environment where everybody, I've been in a place where I haven't necessarily felt like I belonged, and I don't want to make anybody feel like that. So if you've ever felt like that, then just think about, how can I not make anyone feel that way, right? Okay. Well, want to open it up for any comments that you all have, or questions, or anything like that. And I'll stop right there.
I really enjoyed your presentation and learned much, and it's pause for thought for things that have happened in my past to me and things I have done to other people. And I hope we can keep this presentation somewhere so we can reread it. I really enjoyed it.
I can put it on the DOVIA website.
I think that's important.
It's very interesting because yesterday I was over at the Alliance doing the 6-hour training, the one that Sharon did last month, and Karen Sock did the month before that. Well, it came around to my turn. And one of the things that I talked about yesterday was DEI, and I have also seen it written IDEA, IDEA, so that it's a word. I guess maybe it's a little bit easier to remember. And there was a slide, I can't remember exactly what it said. Sharon, maybe you can help me. It said something like, diversity is a fact. We're all different. Inclusion is a choice. It's an active verb. It's, I'm making a decision to include people. And then equity is the result of people understanding that diversity is a fact and choosing inclusiveness. And then, of course, adding the accessibility part. It was a very easy to understand description. So I just was doing that yesterday. So this is very timely. And I apologize for the all old white people comments from earlier. That was probably very, very microaggressive. Well, probably that was macroaggressive, but
I think
I was just flabbergasted by it. So,
well, the field we're in, I don't know what the latest stats are, but at one time, I think 96% of the people who directed volunteers were white females. And so that's changed quite a bit. But we need to have diversity. We're a boring group of people when you're not diverse, just extremely boring. I grew up with a bunch of boring people. Was part of that boring group. But I grew up with some young ladies that were all sizes 0 and 2, and a lot of what you're saying applies to people who are not 5'2" and a size 0 or 2. And it was very painful. I'll just tell you that.
One of the things we taught sizeism. That's another thing, right? Like the way we treat people that are not meeting the norm of a size 2. I don't think I've ever been a 2. A size 2 or whatever. A smaller size, like our double digit ladies,
Well, it's just very painful, and you don't want to create pain for anybody. What kind of person wants to hurt somebody? It's no way to live, and it's no way to complete a mission if you've got someone in pain. We're supposed to work together. And I just loved your presentation. I did. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Tamika. I knew that this was going to be an awesome presentation.
And it was.
Because just being honest, going back to what Michelle said about her when she walked into that conference and what she saw, I was not offended, because I just feel like as a Black person, I can say something about my own race. So that's why I didn't get offended about what you said, because I mean, really, everything that you said was just truth, you know.
Mhm.
And if people get upset about the truth, well, no one's telling the truth these days. Just turn the TV on and listen to the politicians, you know. But anyway, I really appreciated the presentation. And if you're gonna put that on the website for us to be able to use it, I mean, it's a great training tool for the volunteers, I think.
I agree.
Ditto for everything that's been said, Tamika. It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Well, since you're the hostess with the mostest, I think you're the one that can close out the meeting.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to figure that out.
Technology, as far as technology is concerned. Is there anything
I'm
else?
like,
Well,
ah.
Before we close out, does anybody have anything pertinent to say as far as their organizations? We just got through our race. Yay! It's
Yay.
over. I'm still dealing with the aftermath of a couple of things that did not go the way we planned it. But other than that, it was a great race. We're going to have a party on May the 10th at County Line Road Baptist Church for our special needs children and adults. And we're very, very, very excited about that.
That's great.
Yeah, and we're getting ready for a legislative luncheon for the legislators. We're going to try to get them down to the camp in the month of December, right before they go into their session, and that's coming up in 2023. Anything going on with you, Jamie?
Yeah, I was actually just unmuting. This is more, I guess, of a personal thing, but I will be finishing my master's degree in nonprofit administration in 3 weeks. And so I'm just like
Wonderful.
super pumped about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Great news.
Miss Sylvia, what y'all got going on?
Well, we're still meeting with the Cary Christian Center in the Delta, and we received a pretty big donation. So we donated $5,000 to another nonprofit. And that was exciting, you know, like, look at this, you know, to see the needs.
Sylvia, you're telling me that you guys received a massive donation and you shared?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, you know, because we've been not traveling, and because we've not been traveling, we had all this money. And so our board met together and said, what are we going to do with all this? You know, it's just accumulating. Yay, that's a good problem, right? And we knew that they had a need in order for us to continue to teach there. They didn't even have enough money to open back up the after school program. So it might have been a little self-serving, okay, because now we get to teach the kids after school. But anyway, they used it for the buses and for the tutors, the teenagers that are working with the young kids after school. And it was so across the board. It wasn't just, well, here's some money and do whatever. Of course, it had to be designated. And it's working out really good. We get to meet with them, like I said, twice a week. And then we're looking towards maybe being interviewed with the Child Protective Services. That's just kind of like maybe out there. And also with a program with Charlie Smith. I don't know if y'all are familiar with him. And we're just kind of, just to be totally frank with you, I've been really involved with my 104-year-old former mother-in-law who went to heaven last Friday. So if you see sadness, it's extremely sad. But I said all that to say, Precious Children's Mobile Mission has been not the top of my list. And now it will be, because she was first and she actually participated with me for some of the events on Zoom. It was really cool. You know, she's still with the program, but she had to go. It got too many things wrong with her. So you just put the Hinton family in your prayers, because I've been taking care of her. And like I said, Precious Children's Mobile Mission is taking a back seat to that. So hopefully our next meeting, I'll have many more things to say. That's my desire.
That's great stuff. So happy for y'all. And we offer condolences for your mother-in-law.
Thank you.
Sharon?
Okay, I go next. Tamika, I put something in the chat for you. But at the museum, we have just installed Journey to the North Pole. We will open to the public November 20th through January 4th, I think. We're also having a special event on December 2nd. That's called Jammies, and it's out there on the website as well for our guests from 5 till 8. And of course, our New Year's Eve celebration, December 31st. So lots of good things coming on. We have finished pretty much, well, not totally finished, all of our Christmas decorations, but hopefully by the opening of Journey, which is on the 20th, that everything will be in place.
Tamika, any deadlines that we need to meet, or me specifically? Because you know, I always wait on your emails to come through about this.
So, yeah, for you, December 12th will be the last full application deadline. Do I have it on silent? Let's see. Can y'all hear me? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
December 12th is the last full application deadline for round 4, which is February 25th through May 10th. We have a team coming back to campus that will be serving with Jackson Public Schools Environmental Learning Center until around December the 13th. So we haven't had a team on campus the last few months. And so with that, if you all have some weekend opportunities coming up until December 13th, we have a team starting beginning of end of next week that'll be on campus that maybe can assist if you have ISPs. And I think that's about it. Yeah.
So, Tamika, when you said next week, would they be in there the Friday after Thanksgiving?
They'll be on They'll be on campus the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay, okay. Because that was the question I was going to ask you. And we'll talk later offline regarding that. I may have an opportunity.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
we want to hear everything right now. No talking offline. Everybody has to know.
No, it's
Which I'm
just that
joking.
if we're not totally finished, I know we were having some lighting that maybe possibly needed to be changed out, that they would have to be on ladders for. And also up at our education.
Sharon, I'm joking. I was joking. Y'all definitely please talk offline. But anyway,
I have something.
I think Elizabeth.
Yes, I was just going to say that the state capitol will be part of the Christmas by Candlelight tour that's Friday, December 2nd from 4 to 8. I put it in the chat box, but also the Governor's Mansion, the Old Capitol, the Museum of Art, and the 2 Mississippi museums will be open, and they always have the shuttles and all of that, and treats and music everywhere. And they're going to be in partnership with the City of Jackson's Capital City of Lights. So anyway, it's all on the website, but I did put that up.
Thank you. And I think Jamie had a question for Tamika. Did you get that?
Yes. So they'll be available beginning after Thanksgiving, and they'll be on campus until December 13th is when that round ends.
Okay, perfect. I know that they've come out to keep the reservoir beautiful before. And so I'm gonna check with our ED and see if there's anything. I know that we're wanting to put some like Christmas lights and stuff out in the Botanic Garden. So that might be a fun thing to do.
That would be very fun.
Do you know the count of how many it's going to be? Because it appears that there's a need for next week for them.
I think it's a smaller team, and maybe a team of like 7 or 8, maybe.
Wow.
Maybe. I'm not sure. Don't let me tell you something wrong. Yeah.
That's why we have to help them promote so that they can get more young people signing up, you know.
That's
So-
the biggest thing. You all, we have, last year we had 20 plus teams. This year we have a total of 12 teams, that we started the year off with, and it'll probably drop down to 11. And so we just cannot meet, our region has a ton of requests that come in. I have more than, I had 15 applications on my own, and we don't even have, and I only cover 4 states of our region. And we just really need members to sign up, because for one, it's a great opportunity, but then also, you know, it helps us to support the agencies that are out there that need the support. So we just really are in need of this upcoming year. I know that there'll be a deadline in the spring. Anything that you all can do to help share with young people that are 18 to 26 to get them involved and to sign up, we really do need them to do that, so that we can say, help support more agencies and support more communities. Yeah.
Well, I just want to end today by saying thank you to each and every one of you for everything that you do in this crazy world that we live in. And I just say happy Thanksgiving and God bless you all.
Thank you.
for
Happy
doing a great
Thanksgiving,
job.
everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Great meeting, Tamika. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'll just,
You'll just leave for everybody, I believe.
okay, that was what I'll do then.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.